Welcome to the Republican Roundtable. I'm Jacqueline America, your host. Today we have some great candidates who are running in Hennepin County for nonpartisan positions, which means they're not affiliated with a party. We have Diane Krenz, who is running for Hennepin County Attorney, and Joseph Banks, who's running for Hennepin County Sheriff. So Diane, will you start us off and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running?
Yes, thank you. I have worked as a Hennepin County prosecutor for over 40 years. I'm no longer with the office. I left a little bit more than a year ago. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I moved here to go to law school and got to work at the county attorney's office starting in 1983.
Wow,
and
okay.
retired in 2025. And I have done all kinds of prosecution. My last 7 years were in white collar crime, which means that I was prosecuting large scale embezzlements and public benefits fraud and cases like that. And the reason I'm running is to refocus the office on the basics of what it's supposed to be doing. We've gotten a little far afield, I think, from what the job really is as prosecutors, and so my job is to refocus on those core missions.
Fabulous, okay. And Joseph, you are running for Hennepin County Sheriff, and so tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run.
Sure. Well, I'm a former police chief. I started my career in law enforcement back in June 1990. Time kind of flies by. So I've had a chance to kind of watch the process of law enforcement over the years develop. And, you know, I'm running primarily because I think that we can keep people safe, doing things a little bit simpler, but economically okay, and keeping people safe in the county.
Okay, so what's the difference between the sheriff's office and the police?
Sure. Primarily, the sheriff is responsible for the safety of the entire county, whereas the police department is specifically responsible for their cities.
Oh, okay. All right. And Diane, tell us about does the Hennepin County Attorney do?
Well, as I said before, we do prosecution of criminal cases. We do juvenile delinquency cases and any adult prosecution. The county attorney's office also represents the county in a number of ways. We have a civil division that gives advice to the county board, to the sheriff's office,
Okay.
and other agencies within the office. They do child support, mental health commitments, and also represent the child protection department. So it's kind of broad-based, but what most people think of when they think of county attorney, they think of criminal cases.
Sure. So what would you do differently regarding, the current administration? What are some of the problems that are facing that you would do differently?
One of the issues I think that's happened in the county attorney's office is it has become far too political for what I've seen. We can't take into account someone's race when we're deciding to charge someone or dispose of a case or negotiate a case. We have to really be colorblind about those things. I would change a lot of those kinds of policies. I will say one of my concerns is about stops with traffic violations. The city of Minneapolis police have a policy about that, but the county attorney's office has established its own policy for the suburban areas, and the suburban areas are very different from Minneapolis. It's very different policing. So I would want to take the politics out of it. I think that we need to reestablish good relationships with police officers, which I've worked with every police department in Hennepin County and some even outside of Hennepin County. I think we need to make sure that victims are first and foremost, and that's kind of been neglected pretty severely. And then I also think that we really need to have meaningful consequences and appropriate consequences for people who commit crimes, especially violent crimes, but also looking at the juveniles who are, repeatedly stealing cars and things like that. So again, like I said, it's refocusing on the basics. Just as a little bit of an internal piece, It's a bit chaotic within that office. I still have acquaintances and friends that work there, and there's been some real chaos going on, and so I think that needs to be cleared up too, because a healthy and happy workforce is going to do its job better when they're not looking over their shoulder afraid of things.
Sure, okay. And Joseph, how about you too? What are some of the problems that the sheriff faces, and what would you do differently from the administration currently?
I think we're just going to be looking to hire people from the community. We're going to be asking that people apply that live in the community, and we're going to give some incentives for people to actually come and move into the community. We're going to work with the community to identify and solve problems. We're going to talk with the neighbors, talk with the people in the community, get their buy-in as what's working best for them, so that we can have an impact on what's happening. I want to do what we can to lower violent crime in the community.
Okay. So the community and build partnerships, maybe?
We're definitely going to be building some partnerships. I mean, you can't get it done without the community.
Sure. And who would you be building partnerships with?
Some of the grassroots organizations, neighborhood watch groups, things like that. We will talk with the county attorney's office to see what they're encountering and how we can best pursue different areas to make sure that we're doing good cases, and that they're going to have cases that they can actually prosecute with success.
Sure. So are there things like systems and things that need to be updated? Are there?
Sure. I mean, primarily this, I see it all the time now. You just had high-speed chases and things that happen in the community. We do have the technology now. We can move from a little bit more away from pursuing people at higher rate of speeds. We got drones, we got helicopters. So we do have some options to keep the community safe while we still hold people accountable.
Sure. And Diane, is there some kind of systems that can be implemented that would help with caseloads and things like that? Or?
It's a little harder with cases because the lawyer has to take a case. We get a case from the police department. We have to evaluate it, make a decision about what we're going to do, whether we're going to charge it, how we're going to charge it, and how we're going to ultimately resolve the case. So it's a little harder with technology. Over the last 10 years while I was there, we did start doing case systems of keeping cases, electronic case files as opposed to big paper files. So some of that has been in progress already.
Sure. I'm just wondering, because AI is becoming such a big thing now, you'd wonder if it would affect the attorney or the sheriff's office at all.
Well, one of the issues with AI is that people who have used it, lawyers who've used it to write memos to the court, have wound up getting disciplined by the lawyers board because AI likes to pull cases out of thin air that don't exist.
Oh.
So
okay.
I have some very big concerns about using AI for certain things
Sure.
in the office.
Sure. Well, so you both departments would deal with accountability. So how would you make things a little more accountable? Because like you had mentioned, a lot of people are committing crimes and they're not being held to, it seems like a lot of the judges aren't giving out they, what do you call it? They rule from the bench. They're not following through what a sentence should be. They're kind of letting people out a little earlier. How would you help improve the accountability?
Well, in the prosecution of a defendant, we have guidelines. So the state of Minnesota has guidelines that go with, like a box system. So what is the crime worth? Each crime is given a value, and then you look at the person's criminal history score, and you kind of go to that box, and whatever that box is where they're supposed to be. In the past, if judges depart and we don't believe that there was a valid reason for departure, we used to appeal those. My understanding is that is not happening as much anymore. So judges can depart from those guidelines, give a lesser sentence. There's, under case law, certain reasons why you can do that, And sometimes they're not valid reasons. So I would certainly reinstitute that portion of it. And, you know, we have to realize what we can only control what we can control, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can't control some of what a judge is going to do, but at least we can ethically and with integrity go to the judge and say, this is what we want, and if a judge chooses to do something differently, then that is their responsibility and not the responsibility of the office.
Sure, I would think that would be frustrating to seeing the same types of offenders over and over again, Joseph. So, what do you do with that? What can you do?
I mean, from the law enforcement standpoint, we just do our best job to educate the community on how they can best help us and how we can best support them to put together solid cases, and, you know, speak with our county attorney and try to give her as many tools as we can so she can present a solid case. But in the end, the judge has the final say as kind of what he's going to do. So that's way past us.
Yeah. Sure, yeah,
but yeah, we would definitely do our best to work with the community to ensure that when it went to court, she had the best possible tools to try to make it work.
Sure, a lot of people don't understand it has a lot to do with the judges too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I know that Hennepin County, or just even the city of Minneapolis, they have a deficit in police officers. So is that part of? Is that something that you do? Is hire police officers, or?
Well, we would be hiring deputies.
Deputies.
Yeah.
Deputies.
Mm-hmm. I think the problem of it is that over the years we've gotten used to, well, it's worked this way for so long, I'll change it. Realistically, change needs to happen. We need to find a way to fund more deputies in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that prevention is always better than a cure. And when we have those squads in the community that are visibly seen, I believe that it's going to prevent people from committing crimes. And when we can do that, crime will, go down, and it gives us a better shot at catching people that are doing crime.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So, I just lost my train of thought, sorry. So the defund the police movement, is that just the city, or how do you raise funds?
Well, our funding
county?
comes from the county itself.
Mm-hmm.
There's a safety budget that the county actually has set aside, and that's why you would work with the commissioners to either expand on that budget, to kind of give them the best possible diagram, if you would, of what your needs are in the community, and continuously work with them to either expand or decrease based on what the county's needs are.
Okay, so the current sheriff has gone over budget,
Mm-hmm.
And is that because there aren't enough officers, or is that?
Without actually being there, it would be a hypocrisy. But it sounded like in the meeting that that basically they had got authorized for a certain amount of deputies, and then when it came to getting the money didn't come along with it. Someone didn't take the initiative to kind of rectify that prior to hiring folks, so as a result of that, it created a deficit. And then, of course, with the the surge of the immigration here in Hennepin County, not having the manpower in place means people had to work overtime, and so it created some expenses.
So a lot of it has to do with overtime, maybe, or
some of it does.
Yeah,
some of it does. Some of it is just we don't have the manpower.
Sure. Well, and then we're also wearing out our police officers too, and they're pretty stressed out as well. So, yeah. So is there a greater need then because of some of the illegal people that are here, or immigrants?
I think there's a greater need because there's crime, and we all agree that we want to be safe. I don't think it necessarily has a cultural tie to it. We just need to figure out a way how we can all agree that we want to stop or lower crime.
Sure. So, Diane, how would you go about lowering crime?
Well, one of the things I've done in the past, I always look at my past experience. For 10 years, I prosecuted career offenders, and they make up, I don't want to say it's the bulk, but they're certainly a good portion of the amount of crime that happens in the county. And the things I did it was property crime, but still that is a quality of life issue. And so I would reinstitute a career offender program. I mean, we're talking people that had anywhere from 6 to 40 prior felony convictions.
Wow.
And the statutes allow for us to get a statutory maximum sentence. And so I would reestablish that. I think holding people accountable sometimes means people have to go to either the workhouse, the county workhouse, or to prison for a timeout, essentially. And that keeps people safe as well. I know that the current county attorney doesn't necessarily believe in charging homicides as first degree. And doesn't believe in charging some of the homicides the way that I've seen them charged in the past. And so I think I would reinstitute appropriate charging standards for cases, because when someone's locked up, they can't do another crime, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the other things, and I think Joseph knows this as well. It is a small proportion of the communities in the county that are committing the majority of the crime, and so you have to focus on those people.
Okay, sure. What? So we've had some interesting things too going on with the Hennepin counties, with regarding police officers being held for crimes when they're just trying to do their jobs. Mm-hmm. What would you do about that?
Well, I think, it's always a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. I was in the office long enough to know the people who charged those kind of cases. I was there when Trooper Londrigan was charged. Mm-hmm. I was there when Officer Knorr was charged, and I was there when other officers weren't charged for killing somebody who was either unarmed or armed. And, the thing with being a lawyer, the answer almost always is, it depends. And it is. Right. It depends upon what the evidence is.
Issues, yeah.
Right. And we have an ethical standard that we can only charge something if we think we can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So, it's kind of a vague answer. Mm-hmm. However, you have to look at what the case itself is.
And I'm just wondering too, does that prevent the police or the sheriff's department? Does it prevent you from doing your job? Do you take a stand back and not?
I don't think it prevents us from doing the job, but I think that a lot of officers are concerned as to whether or not their leadership supports them while they're doing their job. And I think we have to send a clear message that as long as you're being firm, fair, and professional, that we're going to have your back while you're doing the job.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. So when at the CD5 convention, a gentleman asked you regarding if ICE came in, if you were sheriff, what would your response do? Would you work with ICE? Would you not want to work with them? What would you do with ICE?
Yeah, I think for sure I'm going to work with my federal partners, but we're going to make sure that I understand exactly what it is that their intention is while they're in the county. Mm-hmm. We're going to get a clear understanding as to who they're looking for, where they're going, and how we can best support them in doing that. We're not necessarily doing immigration. They're just simply asking us to do our job in law enforcement to protect them while they're doing their job and keep the citizens safe.
Sure. Yeah, so because that was kind of a problem. It just seemed like it was like a free-for-all, and everywhere you looked there were ICE agents. I think that people wasn't clear on what their positioning was and what they should have done. And the county attorney, great advisor to the sheriff, hey, where do we stand on this? What's the message we can put out there for people to have a clear understanding of what our operation is going to be doing? That message never came across. And so when that didn't happen, you left it to politics, because at that point, the police chiefs are appointed positions, so they have to make some decisions based on keeping their jobs. Sure.
And so there was no other direction for them to rely on.
So it was about communication, really.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. All right. And we had talked about some of the partnerships that you were building. How would that help prevent crime or help accountability?
Well, those partnerships are going to keep us honest. You know, when the community can see that we're clearly doing the job and they can see that we're not hiding anything and we're constantly getting back to people with the best possible answers. You know, when investigations are going on, of course, you have limited information that you can disclose, but you're going to give them as much as you can to keep them honest with what's happening.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So Hennepin County is pretty big, and how does what's going on in Hennepin County affect some of the suburbs and places that aren't, you know, other counties around the area?
I would say that because Hennepin County is the largest county in the state, we're kind of the footprint for what other people are going to experience. Mm-hmm. When we get it wrong, then it overflows. It overflows. And what happens is some of the smaller communities don't have the resources that we have mm-hmm. to stop that overflow. And they're counting on us to do our part and keep them well informed. So we have to put that footprint in the sand, and we have to stay in communication with those guys on a regular basis. And so for me, I know we're going to be building a bridge with having a liaison deputy at each department, because I hear from the smaller departments that we get to the sheriff department, they never get back to us. They never get back to us. Mm-hmm. And so that's a biggie, you know, because for them, that's huge. They have a small community, a small incident to us, because we're seeing it so much, is a huge incident to those guys. And so we have to always treat it that way.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Diane, would you want to add anything to that? Or?
Well, one of the things that I did very successfully in the office was take cases that were not within Hennepin County. In certain statutes, you can aggregate cases, and like theft, identity theft, certain other cases, and we focused on being able to take cases from Scott County, Carver County, Ramsey, Washington, wherever, and bring it all into Hennepin County so that would help those other counties. Let's say you have an identity thief who goes all over the 7 to 10 county metro
Sure.
area stealing people's mail. And so if you can put it all in one county, what I liked about that was the efficiency, where it's just with one judge and in one place, so they weren't playing against each other. And that also kind of takes care of those counties who may not have the resources to deal with some of those crimes.
Okay, right. So is there a lot of overlap then with the counties? Or?
Yes, you can have one of the cases. So the last year and a half when I was in the office, I was the supervisor of the white collar crime team. And the state gambling investigators approached us with a case with these guys out of Ramsey County who were going into bars, breaking in and stealing the pull tab money.
Oh, geez.
Yes, and
okay.
So we worked with them to put together a racketeering case because we couldn't aggregate burglaries. That's not allowed under the statute, but we could do a racketeering case because they were essentially running a burglary enterprise. And we had cases all the way down to Rochester, as far north, I think, as maybe Brainerd, far west in Wilmer, all over the state. So,
Joseph, can you share overlap that the sheriff's office has worked on, or?
Well, car thefts in general, right? They've
sure.
had to adapt to the car thefts between the counties, and you know, they've been able to get some funding to help with that, to help combat that. But you know, we see a lot of overlapping with the drugs, the gangs. That's traditionally kind of what happens. This stuff kind of gets outside of our community. When we lose control of it, it pops up in other communities. They have their own variations of it. You know, we share information with different agencies too. I don't know, do they still use C3?
I don't know what that is.
Well, it was kind of like a system where we could see what was happening in different counties.
Oh,
So if these guys had contact with different individuals,
Yes.
we could see if they had an ongoing investigation, which made it good because then I can call up to, Crow Wing County and go, hey, listen, we got this guy down here. What did you guys do? What do you have on him? So it helps that collaboration to
Helps to build the case.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything that you'd want us to know that would be super challenging, but you think that you would make the best choices for it regarding sheriff or attorney?
I think, for me, it's just, getting folks to realize that we do have to hold people accountable. We can't allow deputies in the jails to not write down proper documentation when they're supposed to be checking cells.
Okay.
We have to hold those people accountable. We have to inform the community as what really happened. We can't have situations where we're saying that our deputies did a great job when responding to a medical emergency, and then we see the video months later and the person's dying on the ground in front of the
boy.
deputies.
Sure.
So we have to do something to change that. I intend to do something to change that. And moving forward, it's going to be a lot more accountability.
We have a minute left, Diane. How about you?
sure. I want to refocus on the victims. I've sat across from thousands of people who've been victimized and have had the worst things in the world happen to them. And I have, I think, a special skill in being able to talk to people, even when it's giving them hard news like, we can't charge your case, or we need to negotiate it. Because we've lost witnesses or whatever. And I think that I'm extremely well suited to reestablish that within the office.
Sure. Well, we'll print your websites on, we'll have them down on the bottom here, but how can people find out more about your campaign?
It's www.dianekrenz.com.
Awesome. And how about you, Joseph?
It's www.banksforsheriff.com, number 4 sheriff.com.
Okay, so for, not F-O-R, for.
Right.
Okay. Well, it was really exciting to hear about your campaigns and what you are doing. You're very competent people, and I mean, we always have the best candidates, and we got to get you guys in. So thank you for spending some time here at the Republican Roundtable. It was an honor and pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for the Republican Roundtable. We'll see you next time.